You're with Wayne and Jess for breakfast, joined now by Despina Priala of Priala Legal, talking law.
And Jess, there's always a long wait time. Anyone that's been involved in the family court will know how long it takes to get through the system and to come out the other side. But there are possibly some changes coming to the family court, Despina.
Yes, there are. So the Attorney General, Christian Porter, is making some other changes and moves in his 3 years or more a role that he's been appointed since in 2017. So he's doing, he's very busy actually. He's doing quite a few things. We talked last week about the Commonwealth Integrity Commission, which is something that Mr. Porter has commenced and established and got that going. So what he's wanting to do now is to merge the family court with the Federal Circuit Court. And there's a lot of uproar from different sources about how that might be wrong, how that could be terrible. You're restructuring the whole family court system, and really, should you do that? So that's targeted for reform, and he's hell-bent on doing it. And in his view, it will actually ease family court matters, because as you can imagine, going to court is not for the faint-hearted, and there's a backlog. Immense backlog in any family, in any court really, a family court, magistrates court, district court, Supreme Court, across the board, New South Wales, Queensland, other states. So if you have a trial coming up, I mean, that's not going to happen 3 months from the time you file a claim. Yep. Absolutely no way. There's at least 2 years wait in the magistrates court. The district court, you might have 12 to 18 months. Supreme Court, again, a backlog. So we have to ask the question, and perhaps Mr. Porter has done that, of course, in looking at the reforms, is, well, how can we fix this? So his job apparently is to try and fix this problem by perhaps a possible restructure of merging two courts together. Whether or not that actually will fix the problem.
Does that make sense? Because if you've got, a large number of people who are trying to fit through the family court system, and then you've got another separate large group of people trying to fit through the Federal Circuit Court, how is that going to make it any better if you bring the two together?
Exactly. So he's wanting to do that and then still have the two separate divisions. But essentially how it's going to help, we'll have to see how that plays out, because he is talking about possibly redirecting sources of income and funding for this new structure to take place. And maybe a restructuring of funding may assist families in having to go through the system, as I call it, because going through the family court generally, yes, there's a massive backlog and there's a process to follow, and you don't get resolutions very quickly unless it's all amicable and unless you can actually settle, which we always encourage couples and families to do. Otherwise, you are stuck in the family court system for a long time. So whether or not this merger will actually help and ease the problem, we don't know. But there's a lot of backlash and uproar about his potential reforms, particularly from the opposition, of course, which is not, not surprising. But whether or not it will create real reform that we need remains to be seen. Possibly another way to look at it, and many other lawyers, I think, feel the same way I do, is perhaps we need to appoint new judges, more judges and more courts to open up across the states. For example, on the Gold Coast, we only have a magistrates court and a district court, okay? And of course a small claims tribunal, well, that's part of the magistrates court and QCAT. So we don't have a Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has a massive backlog. So if you are living on the Gold Coast and your matter, you're here on the Gold Coast, the property or the basis for your claim is all on the Gold Coast, and you reach the monetary threshold in the Supreme Court, which is quite high, you have to go to Brisbane for your matter.
And join the queue. Yeah.
And join the queue. And there are Supreme Courts in North Queensland. There's about 3 or 4 up north, Maryborough, Townsville, etc. But query whether we really should look at having a Supreme Court on the Gold Coast.
You could do with one.
Exactly. Look at the population of the Gold Coast.
Well, it makes sense when you consider that the courts that are here now have been here for, probably several decades in their current form. But in that time, the population for the Gold Coast, for the corridor between Brisbane and the border, and then again south into New South Wales, obviously, the population has exploded over the last 20 or 30 years.
Absolutely, and it's continuing. Look at the migration rate since COVID, particularly. The property market's out of control. There's not enough supply for the demand. I hear this every single day in practice from clients who are wanting to migrate, and just from agents that they just don't have enough supply. So there are more estates being developed. As we go inland, there are more forests perhaps being cut down because, developers get approvals and we're going to do a new land estate, and that's wonderful because all these people migrating, we only have so many houses and so many units and so many townhouses and properties, on the Gold Coast. Where do they go if they're all full?
Well, I mean, obviously everywhere east of the beach, you can't build there, so you've got to go the other way.
You've got to go inland, don't you?
Yeah.
So the population's growing. That's not going to change anytime soon. People love the Gold Coast and they want to move to the Gold Coast, Tweed area here as well. So we need to cater for that. And I would love to talk to Mr. Porter and put that to him, to the Attorney General, to say, have you considered putting a Supreme Court on the Gold Coast and in other areas around Queensland and New South Wales? Consider it. Maybe he already has. Maybe it's on his list of reforms. I don't know. But I think it's something to be considered.
And more judges needed too.
And more judges. I mean, when you have more courts, obviously you've got to have more judges appointed to the bench. And there are, I'm sure, a lot of excellent barristers out there that would really be suitable to be judges.
And more than happy to live on the Gold Coast.
And more than happy to live on the Gold Coast.
While you're talking to the Attorney General, we did have a listener say, it's all good about the Integrity Commission, but who's going to fund that? She was like, is that going to be our taxpayer money? Like, we've already got other commissions. Who's going to actually put the money up for that?
Yeah, exactly right. So, and that's with anything, isn't it, that the government wants to bring in, whether it's a new tax reform, whether it's a Commonwealth Integrity Commission for, investigating, fraudulent conduct and corruption. Why do we have corruption in the first place? Why do we need a commission? All these questions that pop out again about our society and how it's regulated and where are we moving forward. Sure, we could talk about that all day, couldn't we?
Do we then have to foot the bill because they've been doing the wrong thing?
That's it. In the end, the taxpayer has to come up with the money, and there is a limited amount of money overall. So, they have to make these decisions, and sometimes things get done and sometimes they don't.
Exactly, and it always happens that the taxpayer does ultimately pay, one way or another.
And the Federal Circuit Court, would there be matters on the same day? This is the stuff that we have to work out, wouldn't it? Or the logistics.
Yes, so they are going to have two divisions, two branches still, but how it all will play out in the logistics, I think it'll be a massive transition period for all the lawyers and barristers up there when it comes into play, if it does come into play. It'll be interesting times ahead. But again, let's see if these reforms will be true reforms by the Attorney General.
Well, we can come and see you and talk about any matters related to law. Otherwise, you can send an email through to us, breakfast@radio97.com.au. You're at 49 Cockleshell Court in Runaway Bay.
Yes, we are. You can call us at 55 291 294. Talk to myself or my lovely staff. I have lovely girls up there and they love to talk to you, or myself. So yes, please give us a call.
Okay, Jaspina, we'll see you again next week.
See you then.